do, I don't do no more. The things I used to do, I don't do no more. Things I used to do, I don't do no more. For the Lord's made a change in me.
Hello, this is Melissa, and it is the 25th of May, 2023. And today I'm joined by Judy in Oregon. And so we wanted to let you know that it's actually not the 25th of May when we're speaking. It's the 15th, the whole 10 days ahead of time. But that's what worked out for our schedules. And I'm just happy to be talking with Judy today. Hi.
Hi.
How are you? I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
What is the weather like? What's the weather like today?
Yeah. Well, they decided to park a heat dome over us. So it's a little warm here in Oregon right now. Yeah. Yeah, they started really spraying a lot on Thursday.
Oh, you're not one of those that believes that there's a connection between the spray and the weather.
No. Yeah, no, they were laying down the trails big time on Thursday. And so they've parked another one of their heat domes. At least in this apartment that I have air conditioning. Two years ago when they parked their heat dome over us, I lived in an apartment complex that didn't have air conditioning.
That's kind of miserable.
Yeah.
So I thought we might just, you might want to tell a little bit of your background, and we can even talk about how we know one another and how you knew Alan, and just if you want to launch into anything.
Oh my goodness,
Judy, you've got the floor.
I've got the floor.
Yeah.
Well, my background. I guess. I didn't meet Alan until about 2006, and I took my deep dive shortly after September 11th. So, I would say early 2002 is when I took my deep dive into trying to figure out what the truth really is. So there was 4 or 5 years there where I did my own research, because really back then, I don't know when you woke up, Melissa, but back then there was nobody. Until I had been researching for at least a year or two before I ever even came across David Icke or Alex Jones. So there was nobody. So I was on my own. And actually, in hindsight, I think that was actually a good thing for me to experience doing my own research and having my own questions and just digging through, so many things. We could just pick a subject. Once you decide you're going to take the deep dive and see what truth really is, if you're really, really after the truth, there are so many subjects. And I think I hit them all. Or tried to anyway. So that was kind of...
Before 9/11 and the deep dive, you were, I don't want to say average, but you were a woman going about your life, and you were living in a different state at the time, I think, where you're from, and were in the world of business.
Yeah, I was living the American dream. I had a wonderful house that was built in 1926. That was actually a HUD repo when I bought it. And I had, it was a labor of love. I had refurbished it, plus added a lot to it. I was working for, actually, what I believe is the classiest builder in Scottsdale, Arizona. He was the owners were really great people, and we put out a really wonderful product. Like I said, I think I actually think they are still the classiest builder in Arizona. In the Phoenix metropolitan area. So, yeah, living the American dream. Making good money, I had a truck for business, and I had a TT, an Audi TT for weekend excursions, and just living the dream, right?
And you you were still doing that kind of work when you started to research.
Yeah, well, I was working there when September 11th happened. Mm-hmm. And when it happened, I don't know if you remember where you were, but
I do.
Yeah, so watching it on TV, I remember saying, the lady that was standing next to me, after we watched the whole thing unfold on TV there at the office, I just looked at her and I said, whoever did that, they really planned that out really well. Mm-hmm. And then you get wrapped up in everything that's going on, right? But I remember early that morning, they had already determined that it was 19 hijackers, and they had the whole story already laid out by about 9 or 10 o'clock our time in the morning. Because I remember calling a good friend of mine and saying, what did we do to them? That was my question. What did we do to them? To make them want to do this to us? Of course, now in hindsight we did plenty, but still, it was like. It was investigated, and they understood, exactly what happened, right? Mm-hmm. So fast. So, but then, then you, like I said, then you get wrapped up in everybody in America coming together and all that wonderful stuff, right? Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, one of the things that, I think like Bush, didn't he come on and say, they want to attack our way of life or something like that. And he maybe even said something about going shopping or something along those lines.
Yeah, he did. Alan used to comment on that. He said, it's got to be business as usual and spend, spend money.
Spend money, yeah. So, like, I took that to heart, right? So I said to my mom, my mother loves Vegas, and I'm like, well, as soon as we can start flying again, let's go to Vegas and spend money. And my mom's like, okay, and my sister was like, okay. So the very day that they started letting the flights go, my mother and my sister and I, we flew to Vegas. Now we had the whole airplane to ourselves, and when we got to Vegas, we had all of Vegas to ourselves, except we ran into one Canadian couple, and we had even bought shirts with the American flag on it that said, proud to be American. So the three of us are like wearing our shirts. Well, this Canadian couple says, "Oh, can we take your picture? We want to show everybody back home what the Americans are doing." And we were like, "Americans? What Americans are you talking about? We're the only ones here." So we actually had a couple days of Vegas all to ourselves, which was actually pretty fun. It was pretty fun. But then, after then coming home and getting back to life as usual, there were just so many things about it that just nagged at the back of my mind, like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. And then we went into Afghanistan, and from the time I was a really young child, war has always deeply, deeply bothered me. I've always thought, like, how can guys, and now women, just go off and kill people that they don't even know? It just always, just like I said, it always deeply, deeply bothered me. So with the war, going into Afghanistan and then the drums rolling for going into Iraq, I thought, I have got to understand what is going on. And like I said, the reasons that they were giving for September 11th didn't make sense to me. So I knew there was something wrong with that. And that's when I just took my deep dive into researching. I think pretty quickly come to the conclusion that it was an inside job. Now, there was nobody that I could talk to, and I hadn't come across anybody's work either. So I had come to the conclusion that it was an inside job. Then I decided, okay, now I'm going to prove myself wrong. And I kind of did my research backwards to try to prove myself wrong. And I couldn't prove myself wrong. So I knew. So I don't know, maybe a year had gone by then. I guess the first person that I really came across was David Icke. He was the only one, saying, that I came across anyway.
Giving an alternate story to...
Well, that it was saying after I had already come to the conclusion myself that he was saying, you know, September 11th was an inside job.
Right.
And so I started researching his work. And, I don't know where to even begin with that whole thing. You know, it changes you. It changes you completely. And I just, you know, I felt like I needed to do something. You know, I was naive and I wanted to save the world, right? Mm-hmm. And when I finally watched the movie with Mel Gibson, Conspiracy Theory.
Yes.
I'd already been doing my research, and I had I was printing all kinds of documents and buying books and recording shows, and I was just like him. And when I finally did watch that movie and saw like that opening scene where he's in the taxi, he's going, that was me. I'm not kidding you. That was me, and that was if I
actually forced at gunpoint to give semen samples in little plastic jars, which are now stored below Rockefeller Center underneath the ice skating rink. Wouldn't want to be there for the thaw. Ugh. I mean, it's disgusting. You know what they put in the water, don't you? Fluoride. Yeah, fluoride. On the pretext that it strengthens your teeth. That's ridiculous. You know what this stuff does to you? It actually weakens your will. Takes away the capacity for free and creative thought and makes you a slave to the state. So you ever wonder about all these militia groups, survivalist-type kooks from the right-wing side? They say that they're defending the country from the UN troops. These guys are yelling so loud, my theory is, and this is a conspiracy, pal, that they are the UN troops and that they're in place. The infrastructure's ready, it's just a fait accompli. When the time comes, they'll just take over and we'll all be toast. Oswald, that's what I said, Oswald. He said, I'm just a patsy, and that means that he didn't do it, right? Tell you the one about Arm & Hammer goes to the doctor, and the doctor said, hey, Armin, you've only got 3 minutes to live. And he says, oh, my God, that's terrible news. Isn't there anything you can do for me, Doc? 3 minutes. And the doctor says, well, Armin, I can boil you an egg. I guess not. All right. Did you ever see those advertisements like, got milk? Hey, open up. Open it up. What's going on in there? Open it up. Son of a bitch. Eat beef? I mean, that's kind of like saying smoke cigarettes or drive cars. I mean, it's real generic. It's like this guy looks at me and he says to me, you think you're living in a free country? Do you think this is a democracy? Of course it's not. Websites, newsletters, self-published manifestos, they think we're kooks. I mean, George Bush knew what he was saying when he said New World Order. Remember those three little words, New World Order? Well, he was a 33rd degree Mason, and as ex-director of the CIA. He knew that saying that was sends conspirologists everywhere spinning their wheels, and they destroy their own credibility. Hey, don't get me wrong, sister. I'm sure your heart's in the right place, okay? But, somebody's got to lift the scab, the festering scab that is the Vatican. The chip for identification so they can track down an animal anywhere he's at, you'll insert it under the dog's skin, and it's kind of like an identification thing. I mean, it's only a small...
I wish I had met Alan earlier because, he always warned us about doing that. I was wrong in doing that. I think I kind of... Because that's how I was, but that wasn't anybody else's world around mm-hmm. me. Mm-hmm. And I kid you not, they, my family, my friends, they really wanted to put me right into the straitjacket. They thought I was crazy. Mm-hmm. It was... So that was tough. So, but anyway, like I said, so here I am, I want to save the world, right? Got to do something. And like I said, you just can't, you're just not the same person after that. And you can't just do these, what you're supposed to be doing, right? Mm-hmm. Living the American dream just was not interesting anymore,
Right.
And so in doing all that research, I had already come to that, I thought they were going to take our country down to a third world country, and that we weren't going to be able to travel. Mm-hmm. All of that. I had come across all of that, of what their intentions were. I had a friend a friend of mine who was in the construction business, who had sold one of the companies that I had worked for prior to the one that I was just telling you about, he had sold us some property and we became friends, but he also owned an island in Costa Rica. And when he and I would get together, he would show me all the new pictures from his trips to Costa Rica. And I'd always, just in the back of my mind, thought, one day maybe when I retire, I'll move to Costa Rica. So what I decided to do was sell my house and move to Costa Rica, and I was going to go write some books, wake everybody up. So I did that. I moved to Costa Rica and probably lived there for about a year. And it's kind of different than what you might think. There are a lot of Americans that they will move down there and then see what it's really like and sell everything and move back home, which was me.
Well, that's kind of funny because all of my siblings and I, many years ago, we took my mom and dad to Costa Rica to celebrate one of their anniversaries. And so I got to see the country and see what it was like, but also there were things that I noticed there that I didn't I noticed, and it was kind of odd, like an official U.S. presence that I didn't understand. And then later when I met Alan, he said, "Well, don't you know that Costa Rica is like owned by the CIA? They're all over that country."
talking about going into the belly of the beast.
Yeah.
Oh, hell, I didn't know. Yeah, I just knew it was beautiful country and beautiful people as well, Mm-hmm. But once you're down there, it is third world. Like, you have to be a race car driver for one. And I didn't want to be a race car driver. I mean, yeah. I can't tell you the number of times that my sister and I were, like, they had some roundabouts where they had, where they had streets coming together. They'd have roundabouts, and there was many times where we were just going around and around and around on the roundabout, Other people probably know how to drive on those, but hey, I'm from here, I like stoplights and
right.
curbs and sidewalks and, So it was quite different. And so I ended up moving back to America.
Did you get back into construction? No, go ahead.
No, I didn't get back into construction, but so I moved back. I think it was like 2006 when I actually rented a room from my ex-brother-in-law, mm-hmm. who was willing to take care of my dogs. I had 2 dogs at the time, mm-hmm. and allowed me to go doing a little bit of traveling because I wanted to know. I mean, I still had lots of questions about the world, and I wanted to see some of these things for myself, as well as I had already figured out by then that there's going to be a time when we were not able to travel, mm-hmm. and so I wanted to get my traveling out of the way before that happened. Mm-hmm. So I spent a couple years, spent about a month going all around South America. Spent about 3 weeks on Easter Island to go see the big moai and just mm-hmm. see what that was all about. Spent about a month in Egypt. I don't know, traveled around a bit. And then I think actually while I was renting that room is when I came across Alan. I came across Alan through Alex Jones. And I remember specifically thinking, okay, there must be somebody that is a genuine person. let me look and see who Alex Jones has interviewed. There must be somebody in there, and I remember looking at the pictures and reading the bios on mm-hmm. people and picking out Alan. I thought, God, he looks like he might be a genuine individual. And so I listened to his show, and it was like, oh yeah, this guy's saying exactly. And then some. I mean, I learned a lot from Alan as well. Don't get me wrong, I didn't know everything, but I knew enough. I knew enough by the time I had come across Alan, including COINTELPRO, controlled opposition, mm-hmm. all of that. You figure all of that out because other people that you encounter, So I actually listened to Alan, I would say for, I don't know, I want to say about 5 or 6 months. I listened to all his talks before I ever got in touch with him because I wanted to make sure that he was the real deal and I wasn't just falling for it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There was one show that he did with, what was her name? The one...
Hepzibah?
No, the lady that he actually...
Oh, Jackie Petru?
Yeah, he had given out his phone number.
Ah, right.
On one of her shows, and I happened to, write it down and called him up and got lucky. He answered the phone. So we started talking, and we talked for about 6 months, and I had just offered help because the whole thing of, turning my whole life upside down and doing that was to try to find an outlet to help with our situation. And I knew we were in a situation and people were not aware of it, So I had called him to offer, he sounded like he needed some help and I had offered him to see if there was a way that I could help him. So that's how we got to know each other.
Well, then what happened next? I mean, I know this, but...
Go ahead.
So you were having a phone relationship and talking with him regularly, and then what happened?
Well, we talked for about 6 months, on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, we had decided, I guess, it was okay for me to come and see how I could help him out.
Mm-hmm.
So I got on a plane, took a plane trip across the country from Arizona to Canada to just to see how I could help him out, and I stayed for a couple weeks.
You made it a couple of weeks.
I tip my hat to you, little lady boy. I'll tell you what, you are so. I've nicknamed you the Pioneer Lady because I don't know how you managed for that long. There was no way I could have done that. But I really, and that just goes to show you, like, I think I know this. You already told me you were in love with him before you ever went to see him, so I think that's the difference. Plus the universe, I do believe the universe sort of has some things mapped out for us, and I could not have done that. There is no way you would have had to really put me in a straitjacket.
Well, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny because you and we just sparked to each other, and we have this in common is that you were there and you know what the house looked like, what the circumstances were like, and we've howled with laughter over it. And you said that drain board in the kitchen. You said, I'm responsible for that drain board. And you said, was it still there? And you described the color. I said, oh yeah, that was our drain board. And you said, yeah, well, you should have seen the one when I got there.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess here's what I was thinking. I thought I was going to be like a researcher. And it quickly dawned on me, in addition to a couple other stories that I'll tell you, but it quickly dawned on me that what was really needed was someone to cook some meals for him because he was in very poor health, and do the dishes. And you know what? That's never been me. I've never been married. I don't have kids. I grab an apple or an orange or a quick sandwich, cooking, that's not me. That's not me at all. And so like I said, I kind of realized that that's really, he didn't need a researcher. He already had it all. He already had it all figured out. He needed someone to cook and clean, and my gosh, that just wasn't me.
Well, it's so funny. Go ahead. The drain.
Well, he's very frugal, right? Like,
yes.
You know, yeah, okay, like nothing new. We don't need that, you know. And so that dish drainer was hard as gold with mold on it and everything, you know. And one time we went into town, and I was like, I had to beg him. I'm like, please, could we just get it's $5, right? This one dish drainer. I said, could we please buy a new dish drainer? And finally he agreed. Okay, we can bring a new dish drainer. It's all right to get a new dish drainer and bring it into the house, right? And then, so like, okay, I thought, okay, well, just, you know, at least I can be putting these clean dishes on a clean dish drainer, right? And then that damn thing had to sit, you know, with, you know how there's like the pile right there in the kitchen of burning stuff?
Right, yes.
Burned?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, it sat in that pile for about 4 days, and finally I said, yeah, can we like burn this, please? I need to get this thing out of my sight, you know.
Oh, Judy, you're so high maintenance.
I know, but I at least waited 4 days. Oh. But
well,
yeah,
the funny thing is, I just will interject here that
okay.
I was listening to Alan starting, I guess, probably late 2006, I don't know, so maybe 2006 in there. And I heard him say things like he was run off his feet and he didn't have time to eat and so forth. Well, what I found out later, I wouldn't say, you know, Alan was not interviewing women. that was not what was going on. But as it turned out, there were a few women that came to visit, and I think that was always in the back of his mind, was that the right kind of help would come and stay. And it just so happened, I remember him asking me if I cooked. I said I love to cook. And of course...
and I can come. Did I just scooted the one that doesn't like to cook out the back door? No.
That's it. And I, you know, what I'm also going to say here too, because you can tell this story yourself, or you can embellish it. But I have to say that he told me about you and that you had come to visit a couple of times, and he spoke very highly of you, and he still had, you know, a friendship with you. So I knew Judy, but I remember him saying the comparing us, that we had both come out of the corporate world and we'd had these nice homes and et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, he said, she told me about her house and you know, the switch plates where the lights were, everything, she had picked them out. They were all custom, and she had talked about all of the details that she'd done with her house. And he said, you know, when she got here and I saw her, you know, she's this tall blonde woman with a nice pair of custom jeans and boots. And I thought to myself, she's CIA. And then, you know, he said, well, he goes, well, you always have to wonder. You have to wonder, where do these people, you know, do they, you know, is some agency just handpicking the right woman just for you? And then he'd say, I mean, I never could figure out what you would want to give up your, you know, fancy life and come here for either. But he said, I think in your case you're just nuts. You know, but
talking about you.
Yeah, talking about me. But you know,
yeah, you're just nuts. Yeah,
I said, I'm crazy. I am crazy, Alan. I'm crazy about you. You know, but then later on, I don't know, some months later, you came up again in topic, and he said, yeah, and those long legs. And I said, okay, Alan, I understand. Judy had long legs. Drop it.
So, you know, that's funny because I never even thought that he might think that I was CIA, but that makes sense. I mean, that makes sense that they might send somebody to, you know, But it never dawned on me, but I did, like I listened to it before I ever got in touch with him. I listened to him for 6 months to see if there was any inconsistencies or, any red flags or whatever to see if he was the real deal. I never even thought,
I think he was totally kidding about that. He just said the idea, and he meant it towards me too. He said, when you think that a woman is going to come here and live in these circumstances, you just have to ask yourself all of the questions. But no, he didn't think that about you for a minute. He knew you very well.
Well, I'll tell you why. He said he did say that to me. Like,
oh, did he?
Later, he said. Well, I'll tell you why because. And this is why I really, really tip my hat to you, because the first time that I visited him, I went home early. I went home earlier than what I should have gone home because, okay, I'll tell you. So that's funny. I got to back up to the long legs thing and the CIA thing. Is that why they didn't want to come to the airport because the cameras or whatever, and I said, oh, okay, So I had to take a cab to, there's some coffee shop closer to where he lives, and be dropped off at this coffee shop, and they picked me up from there, right? Mm-hmm. So I was walking out of the coffee shop.
And I won't say a name, but the they there that picked you up was Alan and the young man that had helped build the websites and was there for a few years helping with that. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was
okay. So they picked you up at the coffee shop.
Yeah. So, but he had me sit down on the curb. We sat there on the curb for about 20 or 25 minutes talking before we got in the vehicle to drive away. So, after the last time I talked to you and we were talking about that, I thought, oh, I wonder if I did I pass some sort of test? And if I didn't pass some sort of test, was I going to get put back in the cab and sent to a hotel and put back on the plane to come back home or what? I'm not sure what about, or was it the long legs that was making him uncomfortable? He wanted to see if those long legs could sit down on a curb or I don't know. That's too funny. But okay, so we do finally get to go. I do finally, I get to go to the house, right? Mm-hmm. And, the next day, he decided, it would be good to go for a walk. So we're walking down that road behind the house, mm-hmm. right? There's a road behind the house, right?
Yes.
So we head out, we're walking down that road, walking.
The road behind the house was, that was his road. It was a private road.
Right.
I'm just saying that it was not a public road. Yeah, it was his road.
Keep that in mind, that was his road. So we're walking down, I'm thinking all of this property was his, right? That we're walking on, okay? Uh-huh. It's all his property. So we're walking and whatever, and then all of a sudden a thunderstorm rolled in and it started raining, so we went and put ourselves under some trees to get out of the rain, and then I think we had to move over to some other trees. And I said, and he had an interview with somebody that night, and he was worried that he wasn't going to get back for the interview. And I said, no. I said, just, this is going to it's going to open up, it's going to clear up long enough for us to get back to the house. And he's like, okay. So we sat there, and then finally it did. It just parted, and I was like, okay, now we can get back to the house. And he's like, I'm lost. I don't know how to get back to the house. And I'm like, nah, really? He said, yeah, And I'm like, well, okay, I know the house is, and I pointed. I said, I know the house is there. That is where the house is. I know that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what the terrain is between here and the house, but I know the house is there. And he's like, okay. And I led the way. Back to the house. I don't know if you ever, because I didn't think I had to pay attention to, because the road kind of zigzags and does this and whatever, I didn't think I had to pay attention to it. It was his property, his house. Mm-hmm. But, I think Alan was so focused that nothing. I mean, he could have been, he could have been Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, and the house could have been, spun around in a tornado and landed somewhere, and it wouldn't matter to him,
Yes.
He was just so totally focused. But anyway, so those long legs, they got us back home. But we had to go through, I don't know if you ever went into that, but it was like a jungle. It was a jungle. I had those jeans on that he was talking about, and I also had a white sweater that just got totally trashed. I mean, it was so muddy, the mud never came out. So one thing that he did warn me about before I came to visit him, because I'm just real picky about a shower, right? He did warn me that, it was a little rough going where he lived. And I was like, I can handle a little rough as long as you have I asked him, do you have a warm shower? Can I have a hot shower? And yeah, you can have a hot shower. And I was okay. Because that's really important to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was cold and rainy, and so I jumped in the shower, and of course I didn't have a hot shower. It was a cold shower, so I hesitated. But the next day, I said, there wasn't hot water. Is there anything that we can do? So we spent a couple days down in the basement fixing the water heater so I could have a hot shower. Okay, so that was a couple days that we got sidetracked from getting things done that he needed to get done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, then some time went on, and I'll tell you, the mosquitoes and the horseflies, oh, they loved me. I had like welts all over my face and all over my shoulders, and and then I don't know, maybe 5 days into it, all of a sudden one morning, Alan and his helper, they're digging up the sewer, the septic tank, and I'm like, so long story short is my poop was too big, and I clogged up his septic tank, and I'm like, oh my, I'm just like setting this guy back so far from doing what he needs to do, So it was like, one thing after another, and I thought, this is not, I'm not the one. I'm obviously not the one to help him, and I'm setting him further behind. So I decided to scoot out a little bit early. And,
that's funny. Well, I won't get into the details because, you actually arrived when the place was still virtually the Taj Mahal. Because he was...
Okay.
He was very focused, and, eventually the plumbing just went. And I too went through one of the digging up of the septics. And I was there for the digging up of the well and putting a new pump in there. But, I just learned to not only live with no hot water, but eventually no running water. And that was the way that it was. But,
see?
What?
You are the pioneer woman. I'm telling you, you are the pioneer woman because.
Yeah. I won't go further with the circumstances because then people really would go, "Oh no, he was right. You are crazy." It was rough, but the thing of it is that I think for me, I had reached a point in my life where I don't know that. The stars aligned, say what you will, but he was right for me, and this was the right thing, and that was it. So yeah. But you had the Taj Mahal experience, Judy. You did. Running water, and he even went down and fixed the hot water for you. I never got that.
I specifically asked if I'd be able to have a hot shower because actually one of the reasons why I moved from Costa Rica back here to the States is because they don't have hot running water in Costa Rica. For a shower, they have like this little device that they put on the shower head. And so when the cold water trickles over it, and it has to trickle instead of come out, it has to trickle to be warm.
Right.
And it's like there's like exposed wires and stuff. You know, it's just crazy. And so that was actually one of the reasons why I wanted to move back to the States, where I could have a hot shower. So it's just always been really
important.
A hot shower has always really been important to me. Growing up, we had like a real small hot water heater. It was a 2-element hot water heater, and I think for many years, one of the elements was broke. You know, so we only had hot water for about 5 minutes if we were lucky. So you always wanted to be the first one. You know, I have a brother and a sister. You always wanted to be the first one in for the shower, right? So, you know, it's been a thing since I can remember with me of wanting to have a hot shower, but but yeah. So yeah, we
well, that was the thing. That was the thing about Alan, and that he was very clear. He was very upfront with me about the idea that really his work was a mission, and everything else came second.
Oh, I mean, I knew. You know, I knew that his work was like I said, that's why I decided to leave early. I thought, shit, I don't, you know, what is it going to be next? Am I going to be getting in the way, you know? But then I came home, and then, when I was talking to him, I had got LASIK surgery. And you know how you just, like, in the back of your mind, when you see all these things going, like, are we ever going to get to the point where it's a Mad Max situation, right?
Right.
Right? You know, so you just... And so I had got LASIK surgery on my eyes because I didn't want to be fumbling for glasses in the forest somewhere or something, you know. And I had talked to him about it, and I felt like I had, you know, kind of convinced him. You know, I didn't try to convince him. I just had talked about, you know, how wonderful it was to be able to just wake up and be able to see and not have to either put contacts in or glasses on. So he was able to, you know, I guess they put you on a schedule or whatever. Anyway, the timing was such that when he was scheduled for a doctor to do that LASIK surgery, the fellow that was helping him wasn't going to be able to be there. Anyway, so I flew back, rented a car, and kind of took care of him for a couple of weeks. It was much more of an ordeal for his surgery than it was for me here. I mean,
you know what?
They had him going back several times and putting patches on his eyes and all kinds of things. And
you know what compounded that, Judy, is you might not remember this, but what compounded it, he was just going to do it as a general thing, but he and his helper had been out cutting some trees down for firewood, and he actually had a splinter go into his eye. And so he was not only doing the corrective vision, but they were dealing with an injury on one of his eyes. So that was...
Oh, I never knew that.
Really? Well...
Yeah, I just thought it was just...
Yeah, no, that... Well, it was...
It
was corrective, but on the one eye, he was actually suffering from an injury.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I did go back and I helped him with taking care of him, taking him to the doctor, you know, back and forth several times and doing that.
Well, that was
and then
good.
You must have come along right after that. Do you know how long was it that you came? I'm glad you did, by the way. Love is like the most powerful thing, right? So
yes,
it was. That was
well,
just, that's just how it was meant to be.
Don't they say that love covers a multitude of sins? That's what I've heard, and I think that's it. Because I remember when we first, he picked me up. They picked me up, and then I got to the house, and I was sitting across the table, and you know what that little propane stove looked like? Can you remember that? The stove? It was a unit that should have been...
I tried to blank it out. That's okay. Interesting. I remember his big magnifying glass.
Yeah. Well, okay.
The kitchen, I tried to blank that out.
Well, I made a lot of good meals and baked a lot of good bread in that house and that stove, but this was the roughest living that I had ever been. I had never seen anything the like of it. I should just say that. But I remember sitting at the table, and the thought in the back of my mind was, I've never seen anything like this. And and I remember him saying something like, and I'm not a drinker, at all. But I remember sitting there at the table, and then at a certain point, and we'd been talking, and in my head I was thinking, wow, this really is rough living here, And then I remember him saying, "Would you like some brandy?" And I said, yes. A brandy would be really nice.
Okay, so I'm not a drinker either. I'm not a drinker either. And when I got there that first night,
did you get a brandy?
I'm not really
Oh, you asked for it.
I asked for it, yeah. I need something to drink.
Well, see, you would kind of, what do they call it, smooth the way for me, because by the time I got there, he must have known have a bottle of something.
Yes, I gulped down a couple of, I think it was brandy too. Yeah, so that's just too funny. Yeah, that pretty rough. Yep, pretty rough. But
yeah.
you did great. My goodness. He was not in very good shape. I mean, health-wise, but those pictures that you showed, when you did the, what'd you call it?
Yeah, fortitude, yeah.
Fortitude, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked really good. So you must have cooked some really good meals. So
yeah.
good for you. We thank you. We all thank you for taking care of him.
Well, he was awfully
skinny.
You
were exactly what he needed. What's that?
He was awfully skinny when I got there, so.
And you're welcome for, laying the groundwork for you.
Yeah, I had, there was a bottle of brandy and a new kitchen drain board. What more could a woman ask for?
That's my gift to you.
Thank you, Judy. We had something in mind actually that we were going to talk about here, but we've run up to, we're like 48 minutes into this conversation. I don't know if we want to just keep talking about Alan and good old Esther, or if we wanted to touch on a couple of things.
Well, what do you think?
Well, you know what we might do. You had such an interesting thing that you wanted to talk about, and I think. Oh, now that I've teased them that way, it would be. You mentioned a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking, that if I had heard of something or if I was aware of something, and it really hadn't. I just hadn't noticed that word. I hadn't seen it, so it was interesting to me.
Well, one of the things, I'm pretty sure everybody else, or most everybody else, has come to this. I think along the way you realize that you're on a spiritual journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, especially after Alan died, I thought I just got this, I need to learn everything that I can learn about the spiritual world, because I do believe that we go on to the spiritual world. So You know, I'm sorry if people don't believe that, or if they have different beliefs. That's okay. But that is what I believe, and that's not hurting anybody. So I just felt the need to learn as much as I possibly could about the spiritual world. So